All right, everyone, I'm Dan Delatorre. Welcome to Comic Book Corner. This is going to be a rapid-fire segment. There are lots of things to talk about here. Before we begin, a huge shout-out to Comic Book Kingpins who gave us a shout-out earlier on this afternoon. Check them out every Monday. Their show begins at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 Eastern, and also the Newbie Show. They also gave us a nice shout-out. Newbie has great content. The Newbie Universe, their shows are on 6 o'clock on Sunday and Tuesday every week. Check these guys out. These guys are
Thank you,
wealth of
fellas.
information.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
And a follow-up to our last segment, we talked about the Defenders, and we had a great conversation afterwards. John and I were talking about the end, why the Defenders came to an end. And we brought up a great point between the two of us that I say the Defenders ended because there was bad writing. There just wasn't a writing team that knew what to do with this very powerful team. The same could be said for the X-Men. Remember, the X-Men started in X-Men 1 and faded in, around 50 or 60, I think. Then they went to reprints. Roy Thomas was the last person to try to save that franchise, and he couldn't do it. So they reprinted for a couple of years, and it wasn't until Giant Size X-Men 1 with Chris Claremont. Claremont knew exactly what to do with the X-Men and save that franchise. And think about that. If Claremont hadn't came on the scene, there'd be no Storm, there'd be no Nightcrawler. Wolverine would not be anywhere near as prominent as he is today. So again, good writing is very, very key. Let's start with this segment here with not a spoiler. Let's talk a little bit about the Batman movie. I saw the Batman movie last Sunday, and I'm not going to give any element to it. It was an outstanding movie. I was grabbed because we all know the Batman storyline. When I sat there, I thought, okay, let's see what DC's doing. I'm hoping, like many, that they're going to gain some traction, and I think they have with this particular character and this movie here. It was interesting. The story grabbed me. I was interested from beginning to end. It was a bit long. It was a 3-hour movie. I mention this for a few reasons. One, I'm hoping the DC Universe finally gets its act together. I'm also hoping that they connect this Batman with the DC Universe. Now, the word is they're not going to. This is going to be a standalone. I think that's a terrible mistake. But think about if DC finally gets their act together. Look at the power of Kevin Feige and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That we live on every word that man says. If DC does get their act together, look at the explosion in the DC market. Now, I don't tell anyone what to do regarding what to invest in and what to purchase and all that. But if they do this right, I think this might be a really good time to start looking into DC keys. And that's all I'm going to say. And I do recommend you see the movie. We might talk about it in the next segment in 2 weeks. But right now, I give it a huge thumbs up. So let's get into our next segment here. I had speaking of the Newbieverse, had a conversation through text with Hypercombo Comics. A good friend of mine, and he texted me just before he made his major purchase. He bought Hulk, speaking Wolverine, Hulk 181 and 180, 2 CGCs. And the question he had for me was, the Hulk 181 had some water damage to it. And he said, do I know anything about what water does to paper regarding its damage? And that started a conversation with us. And I said, the funny thing is, for all of us that are comic collectors, look how many hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of dollars we put into the collecting industry, into the hobby. None of us is an expert on paper. Paper is one of the most fragile things you can possibly imagine. Now, CGC, I've got this image up here. This is my Journey into Mystery annual one, the first appearance of Hercules. It's a gorgeous copy. I have it right here. But the picture doesn't really give it justice. It's beautiful white pages, a gorgeous, very crisp copy. It's a 5.5, but looking at it, it should be a 7.5, possibly an 8. What brought that down about 2 points? To the right side, there's a crescent-shaped moon, water damage on the back cover. If that wasn't there, I think that book would be a 7.5 or an 8, but CGC really, really knocks this down. Now, to answer Hyper's question, what does water damage do to paper? I think we all should start looking into it. That leads to a little bit of maintenance here, because there are lots of shows. Journals had a good piece on this. A1 Comics had a good piece on how to maintain your comics, getting the boards, the bags, and the Mylar and so forth, which is a costly element all by itself. But does anyone talk about storage of temperature, humidity, that sort of thing? And these books have been here for several months. I should probably bring them out to see insects have gotten in because insects love to come in your home and they will destroy anything. So think about the money that you have invested into this. You need to maintain them and keep an eye on them because, again, you could lose thousands or tens of thousands of dollars by not paying attention to things. And at the risk of sounding like your dad, by the way, I have this very methodical thing that I do when I handle comics, raw comics by hand. I'm forever washing my hands. The reason why is this. Paper is very absorbent. It absorbs water very easily, oil, soil, dirt, anything. And once it gets in the paper fibers, it's very difficult to remove. Now, with your hands, your skin has a natural oil that it produces. And if that can easily get onto your paper, if you use hand lotion, like I have dry skin during the wintertime because of the type of work that I do. So I have to use a lotion, but the lotion has a residue. And the residue will transfer to the paper. So I wash my hands before handling that to get that residue off. The same thing with hand sanitizer. We're coming out of the pandemic. I'm not a fan of the hand sanitizer, but the problem with that is you're trying to clear off whatever germs that are on your hands. You're killing them with the hand sanitizer, but it's still on your hands. And so is the residue from the sanitizer. That also will transfer to your paper. It's a simple solution, but I stand behind it. Constantly wash your hands before handling the raw comic. Okay, enough about maintenance. Let's get into a little bit about how to buy on a budget. I'm bringing up some comics here, or Ian is bringing up some comics that I profiled for him. Each of them has a story here. The Avengers one to the right. You can see it's a bit of a worn copy. One of the biggest components that I have to collecting, because I'm a collector on a budget like most people. I'm forever looking for deals. I first saw that one for $775 as is, and I didn't have the money at the time to get it. And I was hoping it would last for a couple days. It didn't. Someone grabbed it, and I was pretty heartbroken. Well, about, I don't know, 3 weeks later, that same comic comes up. Someone wanted to flip it. They added another $200. The bottom line price was $998, which is a steal for an Avengers 1. What you have to do, especially moving forward with the expense of these books, is constantly look. Your diligence will pay off. And I'll show a few more books to prove my point. But you're going to have to be very, very creative moving forward. Most of these grails and these keys are not coming backwards as far as price. Now, the one to the right is a Doctor Strange book. That's Doctor Strange 174. That is the first appearance of a character called Satanish. Now, with Mephisto, with the aforementioned Mephisto most likely on his way, he's one of the minions or associates of Mephisto. So this is a very inexpensive book and a great read, and something you can get your hands on because you never know with the MCU what they're going to bring up next. He could be, if Mephisto comes up, I can see that character showing up as a prelude to Mephisto. Let's go to the next one, Ian. What do we got next here? We have, this is still an underrated series, the Journey into Mystery series. To the right is the classic Thor versus Hulk battle, Journey into Mystery 112. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous copy and a great read. This is an offshoot of Avengers 3 when the Avengers were fighting Hulk and Submariner. There is a side story that is told here in 112. The price has actually come down on this, believe it or not. I think this is the last chance you have to get your hands on books like this because once it goes up, it's not coming back down again. To the left is the first appearance of the Absorbing Man. I love the Absorbing Man, one of the brilliant incarnations from Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. This is also an underrated book. And the entire series is underrated, and you can see these are not really high grades. The 114 is maybe, I don't know, 2530, if that. But it's a great reader's copy. I didn't pay much for it, and it's in my collection. What do we got next, Ian? We are moving on here. Okay. The X-Men. Let's talk about that. Is X-Men 137 here. The aforementioned Chris Claremont. This is a very, very underrated series. Well, pardon me. It's not underrated. It's undervalued. Anything from X-Men 94, which is pretty pricey, and of course Giant Size X-Men 1, which is out of everyone's reach, but all the way up until around 150 or 160, these comics are. I would start to gather these up now. I am right here. I paid not a whole lot for this X-Men 137. That was the climax of the Jean Grey Phoenix story. A great, great classic storyline. So I would start to gobble them up as you can. To the right, we have Tales to Astonish 90, the first appearance of the Abomination. Now, there was a little bit of hype with the Shang-Chi movie. I'm still calling it Shang-Chi. And that comic spiked quite a bit and it's dropped significantly. I would grab these. These are just because these are very underrated stories. Most of these are Stan Lee stories. You've got some gorgeous artwork in most of these. You could still get them in bundles, but I would refocus on some of these stories simply to have them in your collection. Let's move on to our next segment, our next pair of books here. To the right is Strange Tales number 125. Look at that gorgeous cover. The Thing and Submariner, they sort of had it in for each other. They battled quite a bit, but that's an underrated book, and it's something that if you look hard enough, you can find a good deal. And just to have these classics in your collection. Plus, you never know with the Doctor Strange stories, with the Strange Tales movie coming out, we have no idea what direction he's going to go into. Best to stockpile these now. To the right is Fantastic Four number 12. Now, that is a purple label. Now, I bring that up for this reason. There has been and continues to be this stigma of the purple label, that it's a restored label. You should just let it sit on the shelf. Given how...
Oh, no. Did Dan go out?
He was doing so well.
I know, man. Comcast got Dan. Comcast got Dan. Comcast got Dan, man. Is he? Okay, there he goes. All right.
You know, I was doing.
Comcast got you, bro.
We were doing great until just a few seconds ago. Anyway, let's continue on. My apologies for the technical difficulties. No, this is not a live show at all, is it? Fantastic Four number 12. Again, that's a purple label, restored label, and there continues to be this stigma of the purple label that you should just leave it on the shelf. I think you should take a second look at all these purple and even green qualified labels for this reason. The prices are just so astronomical. That Fantastic Four number 12, I paid only $300 for it because nobody wanted it. And yes, it's not a great copy. It's a 1.5. It's got tape all over it and a few other issues, but so what? It is complete. It has been certified by CGC, and it is a gorgeous collection addition to my collection, and I didn't pay that much for it. Let's give another example to what a purple label could look like and what the kind of deals that you get. This is another Journey into Mystery annual number 1, first appearance of Hercules. I have two, well, actually I have 3 of them. I have a raw copy. I have the 5.5 that I just showed. This is a 4.5 white pages, really, really nice copy. And it says minor color restoration, minor color touch-up on the cover. And for that reason and reason alone, it was given a purple label. Now, I deal with colors every day of my life. That's part of my job. I can't find where that color touch-up is. Now, I'm not doubting it's there. CGC has their methods to find these things. But you know what I paid for that book? This is going to be a grail, by the way. This, when Hercules finally shows up in the MCU, and if they find the right actor, let's say a Jason Momoa type character, that will be an expensive grail. I paid only $135 for that. Man. Nobody wanted it. I think that was a stunning price. And if you're on a budget, why would you not, get these purple labels while you can and say you have them in your collection? They're certified, they are graded, and they present very well. Now, I've got 2 last examples here. The Avengers 4 to the right, that is signed by Stan Lee.
I knew John was gonna come in, man. That's his guy, man. Hercules.
Well, if I hope John has a few, because I think they're gonna at some point move up in value significantly. Hercules was all over the place. He was a mainstay in the Silver Age. And to be able to get a major character like that for a very reasonable price, I don't think it's going to last very long. To the Avengers 4, this is probably one of my best examples of perseverance. I looked and looked and looked. Sometimes I was on 3, 4, 5 times a day on eBay, and I saw this one pop up. This is Avengers 4, and anyone who's collected for any length of time recognizes that's a Stan Lee signature. That's a 4.0 off-white to white pages. It is a CBCS label, and they verified the signature that is Stan Lee. Now, why I bring this up? The price that someone was asking for this was $650. That's it. And it seemed to be too good to be true. Now, this is before eBay has had of late a lot of scammers popping up, a lot of suspicious people putting comics up saying, hey, this is a great deal, and the price is too good to be true. Well, I looked at the collector's background. I looked the comic up and over, and even at on a budget, $650 is a lot of money. I said, buy it now. And a week later, that shows up at my door. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's not a record reprint. That is the actual Avengers 4. If that was on eBay today, I doubt if that would last 10 minutes, if that. There are deals out there if you persevere, and the more you put into this hobby, the more you're going to get out of it. But you have to be diligent, because I was diligent. That's how I'm a collector on a budget. I don't have a lot of money, but I still was able to put together a really, really nice collection by being patient. The last book we have is this one here. This is for Newbie. I'm sorry. I love Newbie. He's a friend. I tease him all the time about this. And by the way, see that little blue light at Iron Man's hand? That was a happy mistake when I took a bunch of pictures of it because I was stunned to get it. I can't repeat it. I don't know how I did it, but there's that cool little blue light. This was I was looking at a 1.8 for 4,500, and this fellow here, this 2.0, was also asking 4,500 or best offer. I'd saved and saved and saved for months and months because I wanted one of the Deep Grails, and those two books were on my radar, and I was just getting close and within range to purchase it. And during those long months of savings, I had to pass up so many great opportunities. There was a Tales to Astonish 91. It was first cover appearance of The Abomination. It was a 9.8 signed by Stan Lee. It was the only one in the world, and I could have got it, but I stuck to my guns. I said, no, I want that Grail. So when the opportunity came up, this guy had a best offer caveat to his comic, and I reached out to him because you get 3 bids on eBay. The first bid I threw out was $3,800. It's a decent bid because I wanted to be fair. You never want to throw out something like $1 or $5 and insult the person, because again, you only have 3 bids, and you don't want to piss the person off, to be honest with you, and waste the person's time. The gentleman responded right away, and he said, "Well, I tell you what, you can have her for $4,100." So he's already come down $400 in one shot. Wow. So we went back and forth. So the second bid, I said, well, let's say I think I said $3,900, and he came back with $4,150. That was just within my range. Now I had that third option. I don't want to split hairs and say, hey, let's knock another $50 off. I thought, wait a minute, this is my Grail right here. I said I accept it, got it. But it took an awful lot of work, an awful lot of savings, and an awful lot of patience to be able to get your hands on that thing. Now that's well over 5 figures to get an Iron Man in that grade. I mention all this because moving forward, there's still a lot of deals out there, and in the coming weeks, I'll be profiling some of these deals that I see, and so will the rest of the panel here. Some of these Grails they're pretty pricey. That Tales of Suspense 39 is not coming down anytime soon. But let's talk about one last component regarding finances in economy. Right now, we're in a pretty substantial inflation, and that's the significance of this bubble here. There's too much money being printed out, and there's been a lot of mistakes from the U.S. government, and I don't want to get into politics. You never want to get me started, because as much as I know about comics, I know way more about politics, and I will lose your entire audience, so I'm not going to get into that. But I mention this because we love this hobby. It is extremely wise to look around your surroundings. I think we are going to have a pretty rough year or two, at least, with this high inflation, record gas prices, and all the rest of it, and the value of your dollar going downwards. People have been putting their money into tangible assets, whether it's vehicles or property or gold or silver or whatever. That's also why comic books have gone up, because they're collectible. But be very, very careful moving forward. Make certain that your finances are in order, that your job is secure. Don't do what I did. I made a lot of mistakes as a younger man. I bought a bunch of comics because I just loved them. I wanted to have them. And then times went south, and I had to sell my comics. It was heartbreaking to sell an Amazing Fantasy 15 or the aforementioned Tales of Suspense 39. I've just made terrible choices. And I mention that because I didn't pay attention to the economy. I didn't pay attention to the world around me. I love this community. And my job, as I see it, since I've been given this wonderful platform, thanks to Ian, and the Hoodrat crew, I want to share as much as I know, including giving warnings.
You're Hoodrat crew. You're Hoodrat crew, man.
We're the Hoodrat crew. But again, be very, very careful moving forward. You can still enjoy the hobby. You can still make some money off this if you want to do this for investment or do some flipping, or if you're like me, you just buy and you collect them. All I'm saying is be very, very careful moving forward regarding the economy and what you want to invest in. Make a smart purchase. When times are great, you can buy. When times are not so good, just hold off right now. I've done that for the last 8 or 9 years. There are times, months at a time, I didn't buy anything because I didn't have any money. And that was a smart way to do it because I didn't put myself in debt. That way, that collection that's behind me stays behind me. So again, a word of caution as you move forward. But you're going to have this good crew to show you things regarding things to invest in, opportunities to see. This has been my segment, and it's a pleasure. We will talk next week about some possible spec issues.
Hey, man. Dan the man, bro. Teaching us, man. And then John had me freaking laugh crying, bro. Susan Orman, bro. Yo, I'm telling you, man. But as a person who invests in all that other stuff, y'all know me, man. Susan Orman was like one of my foundation. I used to read her all the time, man. Really sound advice for like investing, and she is nodding her head at Dan right now, like, listen to Dan, listen to Dan, and Susie, man, and Susie, bro. And then let's see, I had this interesting one for Hoodratville. When I came back collecting 10 years ago, I was buying everything new. Once I stopped and only bought things I really love. There you go, man. That's a good way to budget. Yep. You know what I'm saying? And then he was able, and he saved all that money because he was buying things he only loved, Hoodrat, and he was able to buy bigger keys. You know what I'm saying? Like, or you could just be like Rage Steele, man, my homie, man, and your collection consists of 4 181s and 4 GSXs. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, Hoodat's smart because he waits for opportunities. He's very patient, and he slowly, methodically builds up to higher and higher grades. That's the way to do it. But he also has good business sense. I don't have the best business sense, and if you don't, that's okay if you don't have business sense. What I'm saying is that be realistic about what you can and cannot do. That way you can enjoy this hobby, and you don't have to worry about finances because you didn't put yourself in a bad financial situation.
Mm-hmm. Hey, man, seriously, John backs me up. Seriously, her book, Young, Broken, Fabulous, changed my life. I read that book too, bro. I swear to God, my uncle that taught me all this is like, you need to read Susie Orman. I'm like, why do you need to read that white woman stuff, man? It's like, it's some good ass shit, bro. She knows her shit, bro. Like, she is. Read her stuff. But yo, man, let's move on. And you know what time it is for.